When I bought the house on Rosewood Lane, I thought I'd finally earned some peace. 30 years in the Marines left me with a bad knee, a short temper, and a desperate craving for quiet mornings with coffee and maybe a fishing rod. My wife had passed 5 years earlier. My daughter was grown and working in another state, and I was tired of living out of motels. So when a tidy little home opened up in a gated community outside Savannah, I signed the papers without hesitation. The first few days felt normal. I unpacked boxes, waved at neighbors, and even got a basket of muffins from the family across the street. I set up my flagpole, raised the stars and stripes the way I'd done my whole life, and thought maybe I'd finally found a place where nobody cared who I used to be. But in this neighborhood, nothing was that simple. The first sign came on a Wednesday morning. A white envelope slid under my door, stamped with the Pecan Grove Homeowners Association seal. Violation notice. Unauthorized flagpole installation. Fine. $250. I actually laughed. After years of dodging bullets overseas, I was being fined for flying the American flag in my own yard. I figured it had to be some mistake. I called the number listed and got put on hold, then transferred, then finally told to bring it up at the monthly board meeting. When the meeting rolled around, I wore a collared shirt, combed my hair, and walked into the community clubhouse ready to explain myself. What I didn't expect was the hostility that hit me the second I opened the door. Conversation stopped. People stared. A woman at the front table, slender, sharp suit, manicured nails, cleared her throat. "Mr. Randall," she said, "so glad you could join us. I'm Marjorie Ellis, president of the HOA. Her voice had the polished tone of someone who loved hearing herself speak. I tried to be polite, said I wanted to clear up the misunderstanding about the flag. She smiled thinly and began talking about community standards and aesthetic harmony. Within 5 minutes, I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. When I refused to take the flag down, things escalated fast. Neighbors who had waved at me days earlier now avoided eye contact. A man jogging past my house muttered "troublemaker" under his breath. Kids who had been curious about my dog now crossed the street to stay away. It wasn't paranoia. Something was being whispered about me. I found out the source soon enough. An older resident, Mrs. Price, caught me one afternoon by the mailbox. She glanced around nervously before leaning in. "They're saying awful things about you. That you've got a violent past, that you threatened women in your last neighborhood." Her voice trembled. "Marjorie's been warning people to stay away from you. Said you're unstable." I nearly dropped my mail. Me, unstable. I'd spent 3 decades keeping young Marines alive in the worst places on earth. Sure, I had scars, but I never raised a hand to anyone who didn't deserve it. And yet here I was, painted as a monster before I'd even learned half my neighbors' names. That night, I checked the flagpole. At the base, tucked under the screws, was a tiny black device, a microphone. Someone had bugged my yard. Rage boiled in my chest, but training kicked in. I didn't rip it out. I photographed it, logged the time and date, stored it in a bag. Evidence. When my daughter Claire came to visit that weekend, she saw the tension in my face before I said a word. She was a cybersecurity analyst, sharp as they come. I told her everything. She didn't laugh, didn't doubt me. Instead, she opened her laptop. "Dad, let's see how clean their books are." 2 hours later, she showed me numbers that made my stomach knot. Tens of thousands in emergency maintenance approved over the last 3 years. Roofs, driveways, landscaping, all funneled to the same contractor, Ellis & Sons, Marjorie's brother-in-law. Money drained straight from community funds while grateful neighbors sang her praises. Suddenly, it all made sense. The rumors, the hostility, the pressure to silence me. A decorated veteran with investigative instincts wasn't the kind of neighbor Marjorie wanted sniffing around her empire. I tried to fight clean at first, attended another board meeting, presented documents, asked questions calmly. But Marjorie was a master manipulator. She didn't confront me directly. Instead, she filled the room with talk about safety and protecting families. She showed photos of me walking my dog at night, framed as surveillance of neighbors. She called my flagpole a display of aggressive dominance. People nodded, uneasy but convinced, and when I tried to speak, she cut me off, accusing me of using military intimidation tactics. I'd been in firefights less hostile than that room. The next week, a deputy sheriff served me with a restraining order. According to the HOA, I had been harassing residents. My stomach turned cold. In 1 month, I'd gone from friendly new neighbor to legal outcast, all because I put up a flag and asked too many questions. Claire dug deeper, working late nights. She found that Marjorie had pulled the same tricks before. In her last neighborhood, 3 men, middle-aged, authoritative types, had restraining orders filed against them, then moved away quietly, and each bore a resemblance to her late husband, who died in what was officially ruled a household accident. I looked in the mirror and finally saw it. Same build, same hairline, same weary face. Marjorie wasn't just corrupt, she was haunted. And she'd decided I was the ghost who needed erasing. The harassment escalated, tires slashed, sprinkler system sabotaged, flooding my garage, anonymous notes shoved under my door, leave or else. At night, I'd see Marjorie's SUV idling at the corner, headlights off, a shadow watching from inside. Sometimes I swore I heard her whispering a name that wasn't mine. One evening, pounding rattled my front door. 4 men in mismatched tactical gear stormed inside, shouting, "Police! Search warrant!" But I knew better. Wrong uniforms, no warrant, no procedure. They were hired thugs. Instinct took over. I used the kitchen island for cover, swung a hot coffee pot into the first man's face, tripped another with a chair leg. Within minutes, I had all 4 zip-tied with cords from the garage. Under questioning, the leader cracked. Marjorie had paid them to recover stolen documents proving her embezzlement. She'd told them I was blackmailing her. Lies stacked on lies. I recorded every word. My old Marine buddy, now a deputy, arrived after I called. He shook his head. "You handled this textbook, Randall. But she's already spinning it, telling everyone you attack security contractors. You're fighting a shadow war." He was right. And the battle wasn't over. The real hit came 2 nights later. Multiple vehicles rolled up outside, contractor trucks, engines idling. 10 men got out, armed with bats and pipes, cleanup crew. My house wasn't supposed to survive this one. I braced with my buddy at the windows, shotgun ready. But before the mob could move, lights blazed across the street. Mrs. Price stood at her window with a rifle. Other neighbors, the ones who hadn't gotten favors from Marjorie, turned on cameras, phones recording every second. Suddenly, the hired muscle wasn't walking into a quiet operation. They were walking into the spotlight. The men hesitated. Police sirens wailed in the distance, real ones this time. By the time officers arrived, the thugs were scattering. I handed over the recordings, the financial documents, the bug I'd pulled from my flagpole. Piece by piece, the case built itself. Months later, Marjorie was convicted of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted assault. The men she hired got time too. Some neighbors apologized, others moved away in shame. The flag still flies in my yard, weathered but proud. Sometimes I catch myself staring at it, remembering how close I came to losing everything to lies and paranoia. I didn't ask to fight another war, but war came anyway. This time not in deserts or jungles, but in cul-de-sacs and manicured lawns. And just like before, I refused to back down, because peace, real peace, is worth fighting for.